Welcome to a deep dive of Don't Let the Old Man In, a series where we release 3 episodes a week for 3 weeks over December and January. Highlights of the previous series. Enjoy.
I want to change the paradigm of retirement. What does retirement mean to people today? What's in the air? What do people think about when they think of the word retirement? They think of golf, chilling out, freedom. And these are good things, well, at least for golf players. But to me, that's a very limited paradigm. It doesn't address the whole lot of challenges you could meet and address as a retired person to reinvent yourself and your identity. And isn't that exciting? So that paradigm shift, I think, is critically important.
Yeah. I love the notion of reinvention because it's something I've embraced my whole life, for better or for worse. I've made a few mistakes while I'm reinventing myself along the way. But in my executive coaching career, I've noticed that identity is something that's often misunderstood, or not even misunderstood, not even understood at all.
Yeah.
And how we become who we are and how the decisions we make to allow us to become who we are. And it strikes me that a lot of what you do is help people, understand their current set of identity and then what's the shift required. So I was thinking about before you came in today, classic, you go to a barbecue, you go to a family function, no one knows you. John, tell me about you. I am a, I follow Sydney Roosters or
Yes.
Rabbitohs, or if you're in Melbourne, I'm a St Kilda fan, or if you're in the US, I'm a Republican. Like, the identity is clear what you are. I'm an accountant or I'm a financial planner. But when you move into retirement, a lot of those things are not there. And the shift from I'm clear as to what I do to actually I can be something different.
Yeah.
So from your perspective, what are some of the common shifts that people are grappling with, or maybe even starting to understand for the first time as they're contemplating, I'm about to retire?
My clients are typically clients who are about to retire. So they're 55 to 60, 65. They're about to retire. So their head is full of ideas. Typical one is, what will I do with all that free time? Will I be bored? That's a very typical anxiety for someone about to retire. And the way I frame it for their benefit is to make the point that retirement involves crossing a bridge. And if you look at my website, it's full of images of Japanese bridges, which
Beautiful.
I love.
Yeah.
I love Japan and Japanese bridges. And why do I think that's successful? Because you retire from work to something as yet undefined on the other side. And as a critical part of my practice, I get clients to think about, what will you miss as you cross the bridge, which has a dual significance. You probably won't miss the 4-hour commute or the bureaucracy or the people who drove you crazy at work. That's fine. Okay. Let's talk about what you will miss that you might want to take across the bridge into retirement.
Okay.
And the one word that always comes up, it's a strange 6-letter word, banter. I'll miss that Monday morning chat about, what did you get up to? And that's very hard to recreate when you're sitting in your kitchen at 9 a.m. on your own post-work. So it's a question of what do you want to take with you, and identity is just critical. You've put it beautifully. And I heard the way you explained it. It was almost a sense of answering the question, and which tribe do you belong to? I follow this football team. This was my job. And as a client pointed out to me recently, you still are bedeviled by the question in retirement, because when it comes to filling out a form, an immigration form or a census form, there's always that question, occupation. I've yet to meet someone about to retire or in retirement who says, I'll put retired person. I mean, you can, but doesn't come across as terribly electrifyingly exciting. Other things that people think about is, will I miss my routine? I had a routine at work. Why was routine at work, getting on the 6 a.m. bus or whatever it was? Why was that important to you? Well, it gave me structure. It was something I could cling to. Funnily enough, it was also something I could whinge about. Oh, God, that 6 a.m. bus, I've got to do it again.
Part of the banter.
It's part of the banter.
Yeah.
So that routine is important. And then so critically, and you mentioned this when we talked previously, this whole thing of status, which of course doesn't matter to everyone, but I think it matters to a lot of people. And we've got these wonderful acronyms RDS, relevance deprivation syndrome, that can be a big deal.
Yeah.
When all of a sudden in retirement, the phone's not ringing because you're not relevant. Another twist on that, which a friend explained to me, is IDS, importance deficit syndrome. I used to have all these people working for me who made me feel so important. Now I'm sitting in the kitchen, sorry to come back to the kitchen, and nothing's happening. I'm not important to anyone. So therefore, do you want to somehow reinvent yourself as important on the other side?
In my coaching career, as you know, I did loads of work with CEOs and leadership teams, which is a great experience and a great privilege to do it. And I've kept up with many of those CEOs long after they've left the organizations.
Yep.
They typically say two things. You've already said one of them, but they say two things that really hits them when they leave their big role. Mm-hmm. Now, quite a few of them do lots of other stuff. They have a portfolio career, but the big role is gone. So the first thing that they notice is the cognitive load is not there. That thinking load of solving problems every day and being switched on 6.5 days a week is suddenly gone.
Yep.
And it hits them like a wall, right? Because it's very hard to transition from I am the person who ultimately is accountable for solving these problems to I no longer am. Right? There's no transition process. There's no bridge. It's on and off. And the second one is what you just said is I used to be very important.
Yeah.
And I amn't.
Yep.
And even my local barista doesn't even know who I am. Right? And it's a real shock. Yeah. And whilst many of those folks are clearly very, very intelligent and able to think through the natural process of this is going to change, when it happens, it's a real shock.
Put up the periscope. Look around. What experience did your parents have when they retired? And in my case, I'm not sure I learned very much. That's a pity.
Yep.
What about your friends? And all of a sudden there's rich pickings. Oh, yes, Bob had a fabulous retirement. Mary, on the other hand, I could see she wasn't happy with her retirement, and get them to dig into it and find out why. And what can you learn from that? Something.
So the starting point, it sounds like, is you said lift up the periscope, look around, get some relativity measures, i.e., look at Bob, Mary, Nora, get some ideas. What happens when, going back to the notion of identity, what happens when someone's identity is really wrapped up in what they used to do?
Yeah.
And they transition to, I'm no longer doing that. How do you help someone to loosen the bonds of that identity, to be able to look on that periscope? Because if your identity is so wrapped up in I am a, whatever the A is, it's very hard to hold up the periscope. Like you have to loosen the bonds first, don't you?
Yes. So in continuation of what I mentioned before, getting clients to think about what they'll miss as they cross the bridge, part of my process, which I call the 4M process, and the first M is missing, second is measuring, third is meaning, fourth is mastery. It's the meaning component that's the critical one. And when people start to understand what means, what's significant, what's purpose, what's in the Japanese phrase ikigai, the reason to get out of bed in the morning, in retirement, it's no longer got to go and work because I need the money. Yeah. It's who am I? And so retirement coaching, and you would know this as an executive coach, of course, is a wonderful experience for the person being coached to engage in self-reflection and go deeper into who they are. What are their values? That kind of stuff that's so hard to access. And I think, and you may disagree, very hard to access on your own. But with a bit of help from a coach, you can access those values. And I pair that with what are your needs? What do you need? Not what you want. We all want a happy life, but what's driving you to do the things that you want to achieve? The client gets a bit of clarity around these things, and I think that's just so important. So to come back to your point, yes, of course, you were the top financial accountant in this major international firm. Let's dig deeper. What were some of the emotional strengths that you developed and made use of in your job? Oh, so you were very good at mentoring people. Oh, so you were very patient. So you were very good at problem solving. There's 3 things, and I'm sure there's 50 other possibilities. Let's work with those and see if they pair off with some of your values and some of your needs to come up with a package you can take across the bridge. Open that package and it may show very strongly you should be doing volunteer work. It may show very strongly you need to go back to university and study. It may show very clearly you need to be a super grandparent. You don't know, but together we're going to work out the answer to that. And when you get to the other side, the lights will go on. And you would know as a coach, it's those light bulb moments that make coaching such a delightful profession.
Yeah, I agree completely.
Important. There's also what I call the time of retirement, which I referred to earlier. The second part of my 4M process is measuring. When you work, you had this incredibly full and busy calendar of activities, naturally, because if you didn't, the boss might be unhappy with you. Now, if you're looking at and contemplating a totally empty calendar, how does that make you feel? If you feel good about that, that's fine. But if you're anxious about that, we need to start through the process of uncovering your meaning, come up with what I call a portfolio of activities that will fill the time in your day to the level that you feel happy with. And I always caution people with an acronym that I think I made up called BINAM. Busy is not always meaningful. So again, if you're a grandparent, you can contract with your son or daughter to be at the school gate 9 days a week if you want, and you may love that.
Yeah.
But if you're only doing it to fill in your calendar, maybe you need to rethink that.
Let's move to friendship.
Yeah.
This is something that you and I both share as being a very important topic. And I think we both share the same opinion that men are less good in later life at retaining and maintaining, to use one of your phrases, friendships, compared to our women counterparts.
Yeah.
And there's enough evidence around suicide and loneliness to suggest that might be true. And there's loads of anecdotal evidence to suggest that might be true. So I suppose my first question is, A, do you agree with me that is true?
Yeah.
And what are your thoughts around friendship? I know you've got a podcast where you explore friendship, you explore people's views on friendship. Talk to me about friendship and where you sit with that.
One thing I've learned from male clients as a retirement coach, and this surprises me every time, how frequent it is that the male client will say, my friends are pretty much my wife's friends. So in other words, my wife is friends with XYZ, and her husband, we get together as a quartet and we're friends as a quartet. And they almost always say, that's probably not the best way. I'm not always happy with that because I didn't choose that friend. A friend was given to me. So that to me is a very interesting aspect of the way Australian men construe friendship. Yeah. There's also the whole thing about, again, crossing the bridge from work to retirement. Are there any people from your work life you would like to take across the bridge, not hand-holding, but to become your friends in retired life? Did you even think about that? Oh, no, I never did. I thought those friendships had gone. So there are many ways in which I think men can become better at making friends. And a lovely little acronym I heard recently is the TCS acronym, that you text weekly, call monthly, and see people quarterly. You can throw the mathematics of it out the window, but there's a logic to that, which is keep in touch. Yeah. Make the first move. Rather than waiting for a friend to ring you up and say, what are you doing? Should we go for a coffee or a beer? You make that call or send that text.
I'm 55.
Yep.
So I'm now preempting my retirement. What would you have me do to start experimenting in terms of me planning for 3, 4, 5 years from now? What's the process of experimentation that I might bring into this?
It's a great word, experimentation, which to me conjures up another word, flexibility, which then leads to another concept, so obvious, of course, which is in the experimentation and the act of being flexible, just check in on what's happening to you. Don't just blindly go down a path. If, for example, you have a partner, ask them from time to time, what are they noticing about you? So those sorts of observational things can be so important, a kind of personal honesty. So, for example, you might pick up studying something and then realise you're absolutely hopeless. You're getting frustrated. Golf could be a good example of that, or playing a musical instrument. Okay, do you want to keep pushing through? You can do that, but that level of disclosure and reflection and getting opinions of other people might help you to then move forward. So that's my response. It's that sort of experimentation. All the self-reflection is so good for you. You become so aware. It's as if you've got an increased sense of smell and taste and hearing and sight, and everything becomes a bit clearer to you. And of course, that brings up one of those wonderful words that I don't claim to understand, which is curiosity.
Yeah.
Show a sense of curiosity. Get out there, experiment, try something, see what happens.
I hope you enjoy that. Please feel free to subscribe, hit like, hit follow, whatever button's on your screen. We'd love if you sent this episode to a friend of yours. And in the meantime, don't let the old man in.